Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Escow Show. I am so excited to be here with you as always. I love doing this, and I'm so grateful for you for being here. Today is Thursday, February 19th, and I just took a hot sip of tea to the chest, okay? And I'm reeling from it. And I need another one. That's the funny thing, but that really burned. So, good morning. Let me start by taking a sip of tea. If you follow me on X or you're a regular listener of the show, I assume that you don't follow me on X and that you don't listen regularly. But if you do, you know that I've been teasing this upcoming episode about the notes and comments and observations I have from this lecture, this psychology lecture by Dr. Roy Baumeister. And the lecture is going to be on the psychology of human political behavior. I guess it's not really necessary to say human political behavior because do other animals really engage in politics? I mean, social behavior is sure, but I think politics is probably uniquely human. But I've been telling you that I've been taking this lecture course and it's been amazing and it's taught me a lot. And it's been surprisingly all about, not all, but much about culture. And I've shared with you my thoughts about that and how it's made me feel like, oh, maybe I'm on the right track, if not necessarily correct about my assessment of how important the culture war is and why it's important to speak up about it and choose a side. Um, Not necessarily correct, but maybe on the right track. So this has been very interesting. But this penultimate, I love that word, not the final lecture. I don't know what the final lecture is going to be about, but this second to last lecture, which is what penultimate means, is about the psychology of political behavior. I'm 40% through it. I've got a long list of notes. I can already tell it's going to make for an incredible podcast. And because I've been in New Orleans all weekend and just getting back to work, I'm of course going to tell you all about my trip. I have not been able to finish that lecture, so I'm sorry to say that the wait must continue at least another couple days. Let me finish that lecture, really digest it. But all the while that I was in New Orleans celebrating Mardi Gras, I was thinking, oh, I cannot wait to get back on the microphone and tell my audience about this and do this whole big episode about that lecture and my experience in New Orleans and a couple other, like Stephen A. Smith and Mark Kelly and New Jersey Drones and reviewing Interstellar, which I watched on the plane to New Orleans. I said, I'm going to make one big episode out of this somehow. And I started to realize that it had become too big. There were too many things. Um, I mean, I could have done one long episode, but I woke up this morning and I said, you know what? I don't want to wait to finish that lecture. Let me just say what I have to say about Mardi Gras and a couple other things. I mentioned a few of them just a second ago that I have on my list here. Let's get that done, and then I'll make a standalone episode solely about that lecture. So let's get into it, okay? Sip of tea. I guess what I want to say before I begin is you can only, one of my favorite quotes by Steve Jobs, I think it comes from that I think it's 2005 Stanford commencement speeches. He says something to the effect of you can only connect the dots looking backward. So going forward, living life, you can't really see how this decision is going to be relevant and so on. And it comes from his story about, I think he was a college dropout by this point already. He took a random calligraphy course just because it interested him, and that ended up inspiring fonts in computers, right? So it revolutionized computers. So you never know. And so we're gonna kind of go through a couple random topics here and hope that they have some relevance and meaning by the end of it. Okay? Something to do with politics and identity and searching for truth, which is what this podcast is all about. So let's talk. Let me tell you about New Orleans. So I've been married for just over 3 months now. Excuse me. Um, Alexa and I met, oh, just over 2 years ago. Our relationship developed pretty quickly, pretty damn quickly. We're madly in love. We're so happily married. And If you didn't know that about me, I'm freshly coming off of the greatest season of my life. This is the best season of my life. Um, Alexa is an incredible partner, and the world has never been brighter for me. Okay, so she's from New Orleans. We met in San Diego, but she grew up in New Orleans, and we had never gone back. I'd never been, and she'd been meaning to take me back. And so, after the wedding, we had some time, and she booked this trip during Mardi Gras. I don't know anything about Mardi Gras. I don't like to go to Costco, and I'm not kidding, because I don't want to see a bunch of people. I don't like big groups. I was always a guy who wants to be alone in his room, probably playing guitar, watching a movie, hanging out with his friends, just chilling. Don't like big groups, physically or mentally. It's just not where I want to be, right? So I don't know what to expect. And we get in the Uber after we land, and there's this long stretch of highway that has the sound wall and the visual wall up, so I have no idea. We're like 20 minutes driving, and I'm like, I have no idea what to expect. You look around, all I see is cloudy sky and sound wall. And so, well, but nonetheless, there was a magic in the air. I swear to you, there was some sort of magic in the air. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because it was just about to rain. And we knew it was going to rain, and I'll tell you about the rain, but there was some quality in the air that was, I don't know if it was thick or just like stormy, right? Probably it was the pre-storm air, but it felt like I was somewhere, not in Kansas anymore, so to speak. So, look, I could tell you about the food. I can tell you about the sights and sounds. I'll just give you a kind of a quick smattering. We did, the first day we arrived that night at around 8 p.m., walk down Bourbon Street. Okay, so this is Bourbon Street, the Saturday before Mardi Gras. It's pretty peak. It's like, I don't know if it's peak, but it's peak. This is peak. And so it wasn't midnight, right? It wasn't 2 a.m. where it was truly peak of the evening, but we're talking about the peak party day. It was 8 p.m. We walked down Bourbon Street. It was buzzing. It was popping, full of life, just absolutely bursting of life. The note I wrote is a wild assortment of sights and sounds. You had all the partying, all the bead throwing. And by the way, at the time that we were there, we didn't see a lot of nudity or really any, show me your this or that. It was just, hey, throw me beads from the balconies. Balconies are a whole thing in New Orleans. The mood, let me just say the mood with the street music and the soul and the balconies everywhere, these gorgeous old balconies. I don't know why. I asked one of the Uber drivers. I wish I could have interviewed the Uber drivers I had. They're so interesting. The one that I had that was really giving me a lot of good stuff couldn't tell me the mythology of the balconies. I don't know. Maybe the weather is just, but the balconies are a huge thing. All these gorgeous different balconies. You go around, it's like an acid trip. There's like 2,000 different balconies, all unique, kind of like the floats themselves, which I'll get to the parades. But anyway, we're walking down, and it's crazy. It's partying, it's costumes, it's beads throwing, it's it's drinking, but it's fun. It is like revelry. It's like a true carnival. You just, wow, people are really blowing off steam, letting loose. But and yes, there was a security presence, and that was comforting. But it really was joyous and just a true celebration of life, and no holding back, no inhibitions, no judgments. And it was kind of cool. It's not where my comfort zone is necessarily, but I'm at a state in my life. I'm married. I'm more as confident as I've ever been. And so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing people let loose. I can kind of relate to it now, whereas previously I would have just not been able to relate to it. I would have drinking. I was drinking coconut water, walking around. We weren't drinking. We had a blast. So there's music, there's partying, and then you kind of get to the fringe of the street where you're like, all right, let's get out of here a little bit and kind of go home. And you hear people with the microphones, a woman blasting end times preachers, Jesus came for the sin, and it's like, God, how much stimulus can I take? And then you turn the other corner, and it's, a group of people sitting outside of a church, but it doesn't appear to be a Christian gathering. It's a guy teaching about elementals and the fire. It's like every kind of representation of culture and thought and costume is represented in this incredible party experience. And so that was Saturday night. At one point, we went to dinner, and there was psychics with their tables out in the main square, and everything kind of looks a little not spooky, not haunted, but tremendous character and charm, and like something is going on here with this culture. I wanted to see a psychic, and I probably would have if Alexa would have let me. But I told her, I go, you know what they say though, bad spirits can attach, and with demons and all this shit, all someone has to do is touch you and then you're haunted or what, possessed, whatever. And she was like, no, then you're going to be having, I was like, you know what? I am going to be freaking out and claiming that I let something horrible happen just because I got a psychic reading. So I said, we better not do that. But I did hear once that someone I know went to a psychic, and they were kind of, their mind was kind of blown. They walked in, and the person said, you have a person named so and so in your life, and they're a troublemaker. And they're like, what? How did you know? So just imagine this totally charming, moody city bursting with life and costume and party and just celebration. And that was day one. And dinner was amazing. We got fish, and it was incredible. And so just the balconies, okay, that's kind of the scene on day one. Now we go to bed, and we're staying in this Airbnb where we're basically in the attic, and we have just this tin roof above us. And we got pounded on between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. with this incredibly hard rain. And that was an experience too. It wasn't particularly fun. It woke us up, and it pissed me off, but it was just added to the mood. Like, okay, like I am not home right now. I'm in Louisiana. So the next morning, we had a big day of parades planned. So we started with this day parade called I always get this wrong. Is it Thoth, the Egyptian god, right? A lot of people, you may be aware of Thoth in the UFO community and how it all ties into just esoteric knowledge. And, Thoth was a revered figure in ancient Egypt, I guess, as a medicinal figure, figure of tremendous wisdom. He's like one of the main gods, I think, of the Egyptian pantheon. Perhaps it's fair to say. And so I said, aside from all the blatant demonic worshiping, I've had a great time in New Orleans now. So put that aside. The subculture, the Thoth parade and the this parade, there are so many parades in the 2 week period, and there are so many floats in each parade. Like, I'm imagining it's hundreds, maybe thousands of floats over the 2 week period. I couldn't even begin to explain to you. Just talk to your favorite AI. Say, please explain the culture of Mardi Gras to me, including all the mythology behind the floats and this and that. You won't believe how complex it is. But for some reason, this has taken root for centuries now in New Orleans. Well, many decades now, I guess. The general carnival has been centuries old, but the political subculture of the floats and this and that is many decades old. Very interesting subculture. So there's layers to this here. It's a secret societies, and they call them crews, and who's going to choose who does what. And there's kings for each float, and King Thoth and Hail. You're saying Hail Thoth, and you're like, am I worshiping Baal here? And this is not what I came to do. I came here to support my wife and see her hometown. But you kind of let that go, and you're like, okay, we're at the Thoth parade. It's the middle of the day. There are a bunch of the streets crowded. It's not the main street, but it's a nice street, and it's packed, man. It's jamming with life. It's totally jamming. And there are ladders, and the kids go on ladders. And what you do is you wave at the floats as they drive by, and they all have a different theme, and everyone's masked up. You never see the face of a person who's on the float. Each float has like 20 people, and they got beads, they got little cups, they got little light things, little gimmicky things, little Nerf footballs that they throw, and you just suddenly they're like, I don't care about this shit, like whatever. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, throw me something, mister. Like that's what you say, like, throw me something, mister. And that's what it is. And you're like, okay. And it's cool. Everyone's having fun, man. The kids are sitting this one guy, he built, you see what people do to customize their ladders to make it easy for themselves. A little wooden box for the multiple little kids can sit in and their legs can hang. And this one guy had a sunflower seed box with a PVC pipe that he cut at a 45-degree angle, inserted into the box so he could just dig his hand into the PVC pipe and grab sunflower seeds. And so it's pretty fascinating. And it was fun during the day. Um, you get into it. You just kind of say, okay, don't be normal, Brian. Just relax and try to enjoy it. And I managed to do that during the day. And then we got an amazing brunch at a place called Saba's, which apparently means grandfather in Israel, Saba. And just absolutely amazing. The food was incredible. I'll say a little more about the food at the end here, but you ever go to New Orleans, message me and I'll tell you where to get every single meal. You won't, you will not be disappointed. So after brunch, it was really a late lunch, frankly. We had brunch during, noon, one-ish, something, two-ish, something like that. Then we go to a family friend of Alexis. So we got some. It's not like we just went to an Airbnb and didn't get any local experience. No, we stayed. We went to someone's house that she knew. We got true Southern hospitality, and then they live real close to this monstrous parade, the Sunday night parade called Bacchus, Bauchus, and it's a huge parade. It's like absolutely massive public gathering, massive event. Drew Brees was there. I guess he was. I said, "Oh, I wonder if he comes here every year and throws footballs off his little parade and has a statue." Like, wow, no wonder he likes it here. But I guess he was being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. I didn't know that, and so that was very cool to see. And there was an actor, the guy who played Elaine's on and off boyfriend in Seinfeld. I guess the character's name, if you recall, was David Puddy. I forget the actor's name. The actor's name. I can't believe I've forgotten, but you'll recognize his face. He was there. He was like a random celebrity. Okay, like I don't want to say he's a B-lister, but it was Bacchus Sunday night, and the sun goes down, and it's just a party, man, and no violence, no nothing. It was very. I don't want. It wasn't PG, but it was just, now look, there was enormous utility trucks that you don't realize until someone mentions it. Oh yeah, those are parked there so people don't commit terrorism by van, you know? And you go, "Oh geez. I can't believe I didn't even register. Like there's a genuine safety threat here." But unfortunately or fortunately, the tragedy had already kind of happened a few years ago, and they smartened up. So thank God, security was great. But that Sunday night one, just the floats, now it's dark, the floats have lights on them. It's just a trip, totally trippy and fun, and everyone's drinking and partying. But and like I said, it's not PG. There are kids, but it's just friendly and just joyous. Um, and you almost feel like if you're a good, I'm Jewish, right? But I imagine if you're a good Catholic or a good Christian, you're like not comfortable with all of this sinning, all of this partying. The idea is you let the people get it out before the serious season of Lent. It's an amalgamation of pagan traditions and Christian culture all mixed up, and it's fascinating. And I hope I've given you a slight window into how many subcultures there are. I mean, you had the Zulu parade on Monday, which was incredible. I mean, there are a million parades, a million subcultures, a million things going on in the city, and they all somehow melt together to create this thing. And America is front and center. It's not the only concept, but the American flag is present on most floats. And to me, it's the melting pot at its absolute finest. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a liberal at heart. I'm a big melting pot guy. I think the far right goes way too far and that they want to get rid of the melting pot and just make it a straight white culture. And the far left has gone way too far in saying they want to get rid of the melting pot and make it just anything goes. And I say, no, the middle ground is good here. The middle is not always the answer to every problem, right? Sometimes the answer is going to be to the left. Sometimes the answer is going to be to the right. But in the conceptual case of talking about immigration, I think the middle is you have a melting pot. You allow it to do its thing. You cook that juice, baby. You cook that jambalaya, and you make the culture what it is. But you don't throw anything away. It's a process. You cook. Did I just cook? I don't know. So New Orleans, incredible. The culture, and it was just bursting with life. I hope I painted a somewhat adequate picture. It was so much fun, and the food was incredible, man. I mean, where do I begin? I could talk for 10 minutes about breakfast alone, but just real quick, shrimp and grits, unbelievably good. Um, what did I have the next day? Oh, biscuits and gravy, unbelievably good. There's a diner called Ruby Slipper. We went back twice. Third day, I forget where we went, but we got chicken and waffles. I was like, oh, I don't know if this place looks good. It looked kind of Starbucksy. Out of this world good. Coffee and food. I should get the name for you. But chicken, I had chicken and waffles there. It blew my mind. I was like, the chicken and waffles might have been the best breakfast. I told you we had fish. We had some great cuisine. I'm very fortunate. My wife and I have both good jobs. We're not married, so we're able to do this, and we took full advantage of it. Um, wow, food was good. We had some dessert wine. We were drinking Amaro. We're getting into dessert, digestifs, not dessert wines necessarily, but digestifs. A little alcohol, and so we're kind of learning about that. And we had some Amaro after this spicy Italian on Saturday night, and it was just like out of this world, man. So we ate like freaking kings. We saw so many things, and it was quite an experience. And it makes me proud to be an American. I say this is what America's all about: freedom to express yourself, melting pot vibes, and I just dug it, man. I dug it. The culture, the black culture, phenomenal. I mean, I'm a music guy. I'm a blues guy at heart, and so I felt really comfortable there. I just felt really comfortable there on like a soul level. So I love the South. Who knew? Now, I do want to share one thing. As we were Ubering to the airport to leave, this was actually on Tuesday. We stayed through Tuesday. So we saw it all, man. It was incredible. We saw so many people. It was amazing. As we're driving back to the airport, before we get to that freeway where there's that sound wall, and I suddenly can't see everything again, I was looking at some homes. And I'm not talking about the cool homes that are in the heart of the city where you have all the trippy balconies and all the amazing colors, and because that's what New Orleans. The houses are painted crazy colors. It's just like everything's a carnival. I'm talking about just normal homes. Um, I'm not talking about particularly well-off areas. The homes look fine. I don't know the condition of them, but there's nothing particularly fancy or special about them. Okay, I'm talking about blue-collar housing, which there's nothing wrong with, assuming the structures perform their basic functions, assuming they're adequate for human habitation, which I hope they are, and I don't know that they are. But we're passing these houses, kind of getting close to the freeway, and I'm just looking, thinking about Katrina, thinking about poverty, thinking about, just thinking how lucky I am to be able to have this trip and all of that. Jewish guilt creeping in. And I see a guy, and he's on the porch. We must be going slow or something, or even stopped at one point. I look to my right, and I see this guy in this row of houses, and he's sitting on his porch, and it's kind of littered with crap. His porch. I go, oh, he's like a hoarder, or he's got something going on. He looked. I want to say he looked kind of poor. He was in his rocking chair, doing whatever he was doing, and I was just thinking to myself, oh, here's a guy who looks like he's probably got some financial challenges. I wonder what his life is like. He's getting by. He's got a home. That's cool. Who knows why he's got all this crap on his porch? I wonder what his life is like. Who knows? But at least he's got this home. That's great. Great. And then I look up and I go, holy crap. There was no house. It was only a front porch. It's like the entire back half of the house had been blown off with a bomb. And I saw some housing in disrepair along the drive, but not much, not much. This certainly was an outlier. I mean, it's like, did a tornado rip through this guy's house? Was this never repaired from Katrina? Who knows? But there was no house there. There was just a front porch with, like, literally as if it had been violently just ripped off the front of the house. And so that blew my mind. Here I am fantasizing about this guy's life and thinking maybe he's got challenges, but he's getting by and he's okay and he's got a home. So that's cool. And then I look and there's no freaking house. And it started to make sense why everything was on the porch. I go, are you kidding me? So that felt like, I don't know. I don't want to go as far as that felt like some sort of message from God, but that definitely made me stop and think. So that was my weekend in New Orleans. Lots and lots of fun. Okay. I told you I had some random topics to get through, and that hopefully by the end of it, it was going to make some sort of sense and have some sort of relationship to the concepts of identity and politics and culture. And so I move on now from New Orleans, and I want to randomly say a word or two about Hayden McDougall. You may know him as Women Propaganda Online. The guy with the mustache who does the reaction video. He does really funny. He's a talented reactionist, if you can believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. But where you film yourself watching a viral clip and react to it. And so the problem, and he's very funny and intelligent. The problem is he's a fucking true racist. Um, and that's a very, very bad quality to have. He's a racist. He's an anti-Semite. Now, he claims that he's not. He claims that he has friends. Okay, that's fine. If your language is neutral or just borderline a little provocative, your language, Hayden, is way beyond the pale, way beyond the pale. And so you've done this to yourself, just like Nick Fuentes. And I would say generally to people like this who put things online and make these mistakes, I would call them mistakes. It's not like you're punished forever, but there has to be genuine apology, right? That's just how it works. I'm not trying to like rub your face in dog piss or anything like that, or be paternalistic or cringe or anything like that. But when you say horrible things about blacks and Jews and women um, that go way beyond the pale of provocative political commentary, you attract some social shame, and the only way to purge that is through apology and reflection. So the door, I would say, is always open to characters like that. But this is where this guy finds himself, and he's a white guy. I think he claims he's like 5'7". It's not really relevant. I don't even know why I brought it up, but I guess I'm just painting the picture. Imagine he's 5'7", nice mustache, great facial hair. What a shame he's throwing it all away. But the thing about him. So I first talked about him when I covered the Rob Reiner horrific murder and Trump post that was very Trumpian, maybe I should say it. But I did an emergency episode. By the way, if you think, I wonder if Brian has done an episode on so and so event that happened that day that caught the public's attention, the odds are I probably have done an episode about it. So feel free to go ahead and peruse my archive if you're interested on my take on random current events. But I talked about Rob Reiner and Trump's post, and that was also the same week that Hayden McDougall, or Women Propaganda, who has gotten so viral and famous for his hot takes and his provocative takes. There was video, and I won't re-explain the whole story because I covered it in that episode, but he got slapped in public, okay? And so it was like classic, like, oh, you finally get off the internet, get off your stool that you're recording on. You go out to some public event. By the way, he's like a 23-year-old Christian, was a virgin. I'm getting to that, but, one of these guys, a true groper, celibate by choice was my perception of him, very religious, hard right, make this a white country, the Jews are evil, all of that kind of stuff. And so he gets in the real world for the first time. You see him on camera, and he gets bitch slapped. Okay, Turns out it was some misunderstanding, allegedly, and the guy that slapped him wasn't even a Democrat. Not that that necessarily is the dividing line here between decency and indecency, but it was kind of a weird, confusing situation. But he got his ass roasted on live television, essentially, okay? And people have been clowning him, and it's like, has he been the same since? He kind of lost his perfection. He lost a little edge, right? He's doing those videos, and now all of his comments are, bro, I got you. I saw you get bitch slapped. You know, you ain't coming back from that. So it's like, wow, this was a pivotal turning point in the young Hayden McDougall's online career. And I still see videos of him, pop up, and I see, and so he tried to just move on like nothing happened, and so on, as anyone would do, right? Pick yourself up, get back on the camera, keep doing your reaction videos. And I see that they're okay still, but they've gotten a little weaker. Like he's changed, like something is different. And now I see videos of him not even doing reactions, just talking to camera in the car. He's admitting to smoking weed. He's admitting he had sex with a girl. I think he said it was Jewish girl. There's a picture of him hugging on a black girl. I don't know if it was AI or what, or if he had also slept with her or made out with her. Who knows? But it's like, in which I'm obviously completely fine with all of that behavior. I would actually encourage all of that, but in moderation, especially the black women. No, but wow, this guy is really going through it. He's growing up. He's having life experience. I've done several episodes about Nick Fuentes in the past, and I've said there was this clip of Nick with Sneeka walking around, and Sneeka goes, "Oh, we're going to this comedy show." And they're about to walk in, and he goes, "Have you ever been to a comedy show?" And Nick was like, "No, never in person." And my heart sank. I felt so bad for Nick, and it wasn't even that long ago. I go, this guy doesn't get out. And I'm not saying sinning and fornicating and drugs are the answer. I'm just saying a life experience, get some life, live a little. And maybe this will be the healthy adjustment you need, Nick. Hayden. So Hayden is now recording videos talking about getting high and sleeping with women, getting pussy, excuse my language. And he's like, okay, so he's growing, he's changing, and it's kind of interesting. And that's really my point of bringing it up. So maybe he will change for the better. And so keep an eye on him and how the choices he's making now impact his trajectory. I think that'll be quite interesting. Moving on from women propaganda / Hayden McDougall, my note here just says Mark Kelly. Actually, it says more than that. It says post about Munich Security Conference. So I guess he had a post. I think I was traveling when I saw it, and I tried to flag it, but I didn't have strong internet. So I don't know if it got saved to my bookmarks. Even if it did, I forgot to go back and read it. But it was some well thought out screed about Trump wreaking havoc on NATO, and maybe there were things to fix in the Western order and the world order. But the way Trump has gone about it, our allies don't trust us anymore, because that was the heart of it. Mark Kelly was saying, I've had tons of meetings with allies in the last few days. They no longer trust America. So Trump radically reshaping. And so I don't think there's any doubt that Trump is doing that. And so to me, I flagged that because I said, you know what? And we're putting aside the whole scandal, if that's the appropriate word, probably is the appropriate word, but maybe a better word is the whole kerfuffle about, the video that Mark Kelly and a few other lawmakers made encouraging soldiers essentially not to follow unlawful orders, and that just created a whole series of legal disputes and military political disputes that are very active as we speak. It's been good for Mark Kelly's fundraising. I don't know, he's currently, every day I get an email from him saying, I'm suing Pete Hegseth. So it's absolutely madness. And my quick thought on that is I don't think they should have made the video. They made it, and now the chips are going to fall where they are. I don't quite blame the Trump administration for pushing back. I don't know that I would have done, what they did in terms of all of the steps to retaliate and so on. Maybe I would have stopped at a strong statement, but I don't know that I blame them for doing what they're doing, because there are implications to a video like that. So it's just an absolute freaking mess. So kerfuffle, scandal, and I don't think it's helped Mark Kelly. But maybe it has. Maybe it has in the way that I didn't think Gavin Newsom's online behavior was helping him, but maybe it did. Maybe it raised his profile. Maybe it was worth it. For me personally, it's not worth it. I would have Gavin Newsom could have taken a different route that would have been much more conciliatory, much more deferential to Trump, and that would have been how to do it for me. I didn't like the way he approached his social media, mimicking Trump, all of this. Didn't work for me, but maybe it worked for him. In the same way, maybe this is working for Mark Kelly. But had he not done all that, just putting all the controversy to the side, the post about the Munich Security Conference was substantive. It was thoughtful, and this is a guy, scientist, astronaut, senator. I mean, this is a guy who I'd be proud to vote for, and maybe I would if he gets the nomination. Maybe I will vote for Mark Kelly. We will see. But that's the kind of guy, right? In template, in form, I want someone who can convince me in long form interviews that you have a strong vision for America that is correct, and convince me that you don't think the other side are buffoons and that you respect people who disagree with you. It's important. It's really important to me. I think he could fit that criteria. This scandal could be a disaster for him. Geez, this guy, I feel like he's always dealing, whether it's his daughter getting into, the public, partying or some shit, causing him headaches. I feel like Mark Kelly is always, now he walked himself right into this one with the current controversy, but oh, Mark. Now, that brings me to Stephen A. Smith. I like Stephen A. Smith a lot. I don't watch his stuff, but I've seen clips over the years and I'm a big fan. He's a real talker. He's a straight talker. He's a smart man. He's got great personality, great skills, um, and displays common sense. Extremely important. Um, just straight shooter. He doesn't run from what he believes in, but he also doesn't run to paint stereotypes. He is, I think, open minded. I like his disposition a lot. I think he's a very talented man. So I'm a big fan of Stephen A. Smith. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Who isn't a fan of Stephen A. Smith? He's my kind of guy, no question about it. And because of all that, I'm sure he'd make a pretty good president. I mean, actually, what did I just say? Convince me in long form that you have the strong vision for the country. He could do that. I know he could do that because he would just need to do some studying, right? He's capable. I believe that. And show me that you respect the other side. Well, he's clearly doing that. So, you know what, Stephen A. Smith, I'm open. I did say, so I said that in a post in the last few days. And then I also said this in the last few days. I said, you know what? I followed up and said, despite all of that, and not taking anything away from Stephen A. Smith and no disrespect intended at all, but does this not say something about the state of the Democratic Party? You know, I mean, Stephen A. Smith, a broadcaster. I don't want to just call him a sports broadcaster because he's, you know, an award. He's an industry leading. He's not just a sports. Even if all he was a sports broadcaster, he's not just a sports broadcaster. He's an incredible sports broadcaster. But he's more than that. He's a cultural icon, I would say at this point. I would say that. Maybe icon is slightly too strong, but he's getting there. He's a well-known cultural figure, and there's a lot to like about him. But the fact that we're talking about him running for president, I mean, to me, that just is another indicator, just like the culture subject being so prominent in the psychology lectures. This is just another indicator to me, like, Brian, you're correct, man. Your diagnosing of the situation, your diagnosis is correct. The Democratic Party is in a state of absolute tatters. They're absolutely ridiculous with the way too over the top, anti-American, hate yourself if you're white, if you're straight, if you are a traditional American, if you think capitalism is the best system to eradicate poverty, we are sick. And it's not just those academic concepts that have permeated through culture, which they have. It's also the implicit bias training that you get in the school at work, in the workplace. It's like you're hitting us all over in the commercials, every which way we look. And I'm not saying straight white people when I say we, I'm saying everyone in America, every which way you look, there seems to be bias training or messaging geared towards straight white people to correct your biases. And it's just like, this is all very poisonous. And so Stephen A. Smith sees it and he gets it and he goes, hey, man, racism isn't over. There's still plenty of work to do. But the vast majority of Americans, of Republicans, of Trump supporters are not people who need to be culturally re educated. Ibram X. Kendi, Hillary Clinton. And that's what I noticed early in my journey 5 years ago now. It's why I started the podcast called Searching for Political Identity. It's why I ultimately ended up becoming a Trump supporter in 2024. So Stephen A. Smith, interesting. It's an interesting commentary. He's a great commentator, right? And I'm trying to follow his footsteps and be a great commentator. His ascendancy itself is a great commentary on the state of things. So very interesting. Hey, Stephen A. Smith, I like you, man, a lot. And I wish you all the best. And I'll tell you what, I'd work for you. So throwing that out there. Okay. Next random topic in our little mosaic here that's going to eventually just be super cohesive and sensible. The next topic is New Jersey drone theory. I have a new update. And the quick bottom line here is I was talking to a coworker a couple weeks ago. This is an older note that I've been meaning to incorporate for about 2 weeks. We're talking about aliens and UFOs, UAPs, and I'm very interested in all of that if you're not aware. And I mean, how relevant is aliens and are we alone and the whole disclosure question? It's so relevant to what I'm doing here as a search for identity and meaning and truth, right? So don't even get me started. I love sci-fi, so it's like, yes, I'm very interested in the subject. Probably shouldn't. God knows why I was talking to my coworker about it at work. We were on break, I swear. We really were just kind of shooting the shit though. At one point, started talking. I mentioned something. Hey, I saw this. I told him about the UAP I saw in March 2025, and we started talking about the New Jersey drones. And he told me his new theory, and I said, "What is it?" And actually, you know how it came about? We were talking about work, and we were talking, we're talking about work, electric vehicle charging stations, and all of this. And he started telling me about this new product line that's going to be the future of travel, of deliveries, and all this. That's not cars. It's not even cars. It's like vertical. It's like drones that will fly people. So it's basically like the Willy Wonka elevator out in the open. So they're called electric vertical transportation autonomous vehicles. There's like EVTOL is EVTOLs, ETOLs, but they're autonomous vehicles that go vertically and then horizontally and that transport people and goods. Amazon, he said that's the next wave. It's not even cars. The freeways will be obsolete. Roads will be obsolete eventually. That's going to be really interesting. But he said he thinks the New Jersey drones things was just, remember they were saying that drones the size of SUVs. He said this was Amazon and other companies doing their testing in order to get ready to get certified by the federal government. So that explains it. Doesn't that make perfect sense? This is why it was kind of under the radar. This is why people saw what they saw. Oh, Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. I think more precisely, the principle of Occam's razor is when you are presented with multiple explanations, choose the most simplest. Choose the explanation that requires the least amount of assumptions or beliefs. That's Occam's razor. So could be aliens, could be the Chinese, could be nuclear test, but it's probably the next generation of commercial vehicles. Nothing more, nothing less, probably, right? So that was very interesting. So, kind of a relevant segue here into talking about Interstellar. I'll just say a few words. Yes, I'd seen Interstellar before, but I rewatched it on the plane. I actually watched the first, you know, 85% of it on the way to New Orleans and finished it on the way back. And I have some quick thoughts to share with you. First of all, it was yeah, it was better the second time around. It was in many ways the same. My feel, it was a little dry, a little wooden. The characters, but okay, it was much better the second time around. So let me tell you my thoughts. First of all, I am such a baby. I am so quick to cry. Whether it was the Budweiser commercial at the Super Bowl with the eagle and the horse, instant tears. There were a few points in this movie where, even though sometimes, you see, the thing with a Nolan film is it's all about the concept and the idea. And I don't want to call it a gimmick, but that's how he makes his films on like he builds them around interesting concepts. And so because of that structure, there are going to be times where either the dialogue or the acting or something feels a little wooden or forced, or you're like, why is this character doing that? Well, it's not really. Sometimes in a Nolan film, in my opinion, the character does or says something that's not really in service of the character, which is what you would hope and expect in any film, because that feels like real life, right? It's more like the character is doing or saying something sometimes that serves the idea that the film is about, the physics problem, the magic trick, the prestige, like. So sometimes you get this feeling of like, this is not a great movie because why is the character saying this and that? But you have to kind of let yourself go and say, you know what, the movie is not a normal movie where I need to believe every second of this is how a character would truly behave. Sometimes you got to say, wait a minute, this needs to happen this way in order for the question to really be fleshed out in the film. And so Nolan films are just different. Nonetheless, there was a lot of emotion and a lot of heart in it, and several tear points. When Matthew McConaughey is leaving his daughter for the first time, of course, to go on the mission, absolute tearjerker. When he is fighting Matt Damon on that frozen planet, and Damon is talking about survival instincts and seeing your kids, that they're going to be the last thing you see before you die, because your instinct is going to want to make you go on and try to get back to them. And that's, of course, what the whole film is about: getting back to the kids, getting back to Earth, getting back to humanity, saving humanity. So this is the whole film, and I'll say another word about that in a moment. But and then Matt Damon kind of rips the oxygen off or whatever, or the chip or something to Matthew McConaughey after he says that and says basically goodbye, and it's intense. And then McConaughey struggles to get back. Like, he's struggling to get back to his kids. He wants to see his kids, and it just makes you cry. And then he finally makes it back to the ship, and because of what they did in the plot, taking some extra risks to try to save the mission, to save Earth, the sacrifice they make, and this is true generally, but even more so at a particular plot point, they even do it to a further extreme. Making this journey is costing these characters time in relationship to the people on Earth, and so they're saving humanity at the risk of probably never returning. But if you do return, having this weird where you have not aged, but everyone on Earth has aged, and so you missed your children's life and all of this. And so they get back. He makes it back to the ship after this excursion towards the end of the film, and he's watching the montage. He's missed many decades now of Earth. And so he's catching up on these videos of his kids, and it's so sad. I'm just crying. And it just makes you think, the film, what it means to be human. So much of it is about that pioneer's edge. And so tying it into the culture war, Trump, Elon, traditional people who are proud of traditional American culture have that pioneer's spirit. And much of the culture war is, about some people look at America as a country of pioneers. Some people look at a pioneer, it's all about perspective. One person's pioneer is another person's colonizer. And so here you have another display of the culture war. Are we pioneers? Who are we? And so when you have all the immigration and multiculturalism, that is the question. Who are we? And if we don't know who we are, how can we protect ourselves? How can we sustain ourselves? And I think that's a perfectly fair question. And so I think the question is the middle ground, is the cultural, is the melting pot. You don't let anything go, but you also don't fight, tooth and nail to prevent any changes at all to the culture. You just go. You let life happen. You follow the rules. You respect what came before you. You respect who's here now. Um, Nothing wrong with even strict immigration. I don't care as long as you're treating people with dignity and equally. I'm okay with a tight policy. So yeah, what does it mean to be human is one of the questions posed in the film. And the other, that's on one hand what it's about. On the other hand, it's about the sacrifice. Well, it's really what it's about. I was going to say on the other hand, it's really about time. The other. That's really what it's about. The gimmick, I guess, is the time paradox. It's called the bootstrap paradox. Where okay, so the core quote from the film, and it slips by you. And so I was talking to AI about the film afterwards, and so I'm so glad it pointed this out to me. Early in the film, McConaughey says to, I think, his son, something like, when you're a parent, you become the ghost of your children's lives. And when you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that's kind of a pretty deep and thought provoking line about being a parent. Yeah, for sure. But the film is actually takes that and says, no, what if future humans place a black hole near Saturn or Jupiter or whatever, so that humans can find it and escape because there's some calamity coming to Earth. And so humans were born on Earth but never meant to die there. And so future humans, future people, they in the film speak through gravity, wrap your mind around that, place the black hole there. Cooper, Matthew McConaughey's character, is the guy who is destined to be that pilot, that pioneer who saves humanity, and he can never really come back to Earth. It's kind of like a Moses thing, but that's also what he means by the ghost of your children's lives. He disappeared from the children. If he's the parent of all humanity and all humanity are his children, he kind of disappears into the future. And the bootstrap paradox is these future people that came from humanity, they saved the people uh, of Earth. But the people of Earth also went through that black hole and escaped. And so I didn't explain it terribly well, but there's something about like when you really analyze it, they both had to happen or else it wouldn't have happened. And so there is no beginning and no end in terms of, well, who acted first? Did the future people act first and put the black hole there, or did the people? Just Google it. Google the bootstrap paradox in Interstellar, but it's kind of fun. But the bottom line is McConaughey's character says at the very end when the kind of reveal of the film is he eventually makes it back through the black hole and into the tesseract, and he's communicate. It turns out it was him communicating to his young daughter through the bookshelf. He was her ghost. The whole thing, right? You get chills. It was kind of a great reveal. But after that big reveal, he does return through the black hole to Murph, who lives on some other planet. Humanity has colonized a new planet thanks to Matthew McConaughey's sacrifices and ability and communicating through gravity, through the bookshelf, through dust, through the watch to his young daughter, to his daughter at 45. So the film really is the daughter only eventually realizing that these messages were from her dad at various points in her life through the bookshelf because he was through the black hole at that point. It's just a whole time trip thing. And so he gives her key information. She's able to use that and save humanity and take humanity off world. And so eventually he goes through the black hole at the end of the movie, and he's reunited with his daughter, who's now like 90 years old, and he's still the same age, on this off-world colony, and they have a quick moment, and it's beautiful. And she says, "You go, you go." Well, he says, well, she says, "You go. I have my family now to comfort me." And he goes, it's heartbreaking. He goes, "I'm actually gonna cry." He goes, "Where do I go?" Because he's the young father who left his daughter, and they're finally reunited. And now she's 90 years old, and she says, "Go. You're a pioneer. I'm good." And he says, "Where do I go?" I can't believe I'm crying, but it's really, I told you I'm a sucker. And he goes, but I said it out of order because I think prior to that meeting, I think the night before, he was waiting to be reunited with his daughter. They were flying her in from some other colony, right? And he's sitting in this recreated version of the house that there's a museum on this colony, and it's Cooper's house that he grew up in. And he's sitting on the porch, and whoever thought that he would return and live in it. So it's this surreal moment where he's sitting on this recreation of his front porch, and in the background, you get the wheat fields in the foreground, but in the background you have like this curved, amazing space structure where like the floor kind of wraps around to the walls and the ceilings. It's clearly not on Earth, so it's kind of this mind-bending thing where clearly you're not on Earth, but you're in this little, on the foreground, you're here on his porch. And he says, either to himself or to someone, he says, "I want to know where we are, where we're going." He says something like, I don't care much for this, thinking about the past. And then he gets up, and he says, "I want to know where we are, where we're going." And he gets into the jet, and he's going to go visit Anne Hathaway's character, who I could not stand in the film. No disrespect. I just couldn't stand her in the movie. It is what it is. Nothing she did. I just didn't like her face in the movie. Um, but the daughter eventually says, "Go explore." And he's happiest when he's exploring. And that's what he does. And he goes and he finds Dr. Brand, and he goes to save her because her character got stranded on another planet during the film. So, wow, right? I mean, so I had to break all of this up. So this was about an hour. Good thing I didn't try to go into the psychology lecture on political behavior, because that would have, I'm tired. I need to go to sleep. Unfortunately, I have to go to work, but that's life. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope that, and I think it did eventually kind of tie together. We're talking about culture. We're talking about identity. We're talking about getting along. We're talking about surviving and thriving and how to do it, and respecting each other and what's important. That's what this show is about. And I look forward to, I think it's going to be one of the best in terms of just on the nose, relevant information from an industry leader about how humans think about politics. I mean, I'm pretty excited to finishing that lecture and telling you all about it. So I'll see you then, okay? Have a great week and be well. Bye-bye.